It's spooky ween season. I hope you're all having a ghoulish Samhain. I had originally planned for my first ranking slash list video to be for musical biopics in honor of completing my Walk the Line review. Watch it if you haven't. Watch it 100 times all the way through. But instead, I decided to change costumes and course in the undead spirit of my favorite holiday.
Nobody better show up as the Crow. I'm serious. Every costume party, there's like 14 guys come dressed like the Crow because they want to look hot and hook up. It's lame.
Scary movies are just what you do during this time, and I wanted to give a list in that theme, but rather than giving you 10 I like that you've probably seen already, I wanted to instead bring you 10 obscure horror movies that you probably have not seen before to maybe give you something new to check out this year. So before you go shouting at the devil and monster mashing the night away with bags of rainbow fentanyl, check out some of these obscure horror movies. Now, this is informal as all hell if you haven't been able to tell already, and so I don't have rules per se, with the exception of no major franchises on here. So no matter how good Halloween 3 or The Exorcist 3 might be, you will not see them on here. These also are not really in any sort of order, they're all really good, and I did my best to amass a somewhat varied selection of different styles of scary movies. That being said, I do have a certain taste in them, as you'll probably see, so just pick the ones that sound most appealing to you. As a quick honorable mention, my wife told me to throw in the movie Contracted. I personally have never seen this, and I'm not sure I want to from the way she describes it, because it sounds horrifically gross and will mess me up in ways I don't want to have issues with. But this is a story about a woman who gets sexually assaulted at a party and contracts what she thinks is an STD. But, yeah, do with that what you will. To start things off at number 10 is a movie called Spree. This one is a Hulu exclusive, so you'll have to have Hulu or a particular set of skills to be able to watch it. But if you have the means to do so, this is one I would recommend. It's essentially the story of this guy who has been trying to go viral and get famous on the internet for a long time and has been really unsuccessful. So he hatches this plan that he is going to murder passengers that he picks up using a transportation app called Spree and live stream it for his channel. It's a really clever premise with a lot of very relevant messaging as far as today's world of online access is concerned, and the symbolism of someone selling their soul for fame is pretty strong, and it's a nicely balanced movie with the humor of someone seemingly being willing to do whatever to go viral. It's got some good kills, but a lot of the gore is left to the imagination, so if you've got a somewhat weak stomach, this is a good one for you. It's got Joe Keery of Stranger Things fame in the main role, which is one thing going into it I had a major question on, sort of the Harry Potter conundrum. Like, can I see this guy as anything other than Steve Harrington? And I thought he does an excellent job of becoming this character Kurt and really sells you on this person's desperation without losing his obvious charisma and likability. So anyway, I really enjoyed this one, and I think you will too. Keeping in the same vein with scary movies written with a more modern audience in mind, this next one is going to be a movie called Dash Cam. This is a similar idea in which where we have a person who has an internet show, even though this one is a bit more successful than the previous one. And it's basically this online freestyle concert slash wordplay blog, and the events of the movie are basically caught as part of this show. But this is really where the similarities end, because this movie is incredibly wild and unpredictable. I mean, sitting through this one, I had no idea where we were going next or what type of crazy shit might be around the next corner. This movie is much gorier as well and does a really excellent job with shock moments, both as far as like the gore is concerned and also as far as just really gut punching you with certain things that you don't expect. Our main character in this is also very different, and I feel like I'm not wrong in saying that we all know someone who is like this girl Annie, really opinionated and vulgar free spirit who you can't bring yourself to stop being friends with, but you also can't stand to be around them for more than a few minutes for the exact same reasons. There's some genuinely funny moments in this movie as well, from the lyrics to the freestyles to the hilariously accurate live chat that is going on in the corner for most of the movie. I feel like I have to at some point watch this again just for the live chat because it's like the best DVD commentary you could ask for. But yeah, this is one with a more chaotic of the bunch, so if you like unpredictability and not knowing what's happening next, this is a good one for you. At number 8, we have 2009's The Loved Ones. This is an Australian movie that centers around this high school teen who is obsessed with finding her Prince Charming, and this leads her to an eventual abduction of this boy that goes to her school after he refuses to go to a dance with her. And so she proceeds to force this guy to attend this horrific, like, prom from hell. It's a really interesting concept, and it's really well done in terms of plausibility of this actually happening, which is always an important thing in a scary movie, at least for me. The main girl in this, Robin McLeavy, is really good at playing deranged, and this movie dives into some really dark subject matter, even for a horror movie. And it's got some pretty gnarly moments during these basically torture sequences that the main character has to endure. Even more so now, if you've seen the new Dahmer documentary on Netflix, you'll know what I'm talking about when you see it. It's a twisted take on the normal abduction story we see in scary movies usually, and if you're into twisted shit, you will like it. At number 7, we have Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon. Even though this is a slasher movie by definition, this is probably the most unique of the movies on the list because this is essentially a mockumentary type film set in a world where the likes of Freddy Krueger, Jason Voorhees, and Michael Myers actually existed and their murder sprees actually happened. And it centers around a man named Leslie Vernon who is set on becoming the next big slasher. So he hires a film crew to follow him around and document his big massacre and ascension to that throne. Nathan Basil, the guy who plays Leslie Vernon, is so fun and charismatic and has that it where you just want to watch and see what this guy is going to do next. And there's a lot of great comedic moments where he's showing you how they pull off the tricks of the movie, such as always being right there even though the killer is just walking and the victim is just sprinting their ass off. Lots of fun stuff like that. There's some nice horror legend cameos, such as Robert Englund playing the Ahab role that they refer to him as in the movie. And this movie has a great twist. It's not the best one on this list. We'll get to that one. But it's a really nice throw you for a loop moment. I really would have liked a sequel to this one, but so far we have not gotten one. Nonetheless, if you're in the mood for a fourth wall breaking style horror movie, someone in the same vein as Cabin in the Woods, you'll really enjoy this. At number 6, we have Tales from the Crypt Demon Knight. If you're not old enough to remember, Tales from the Crypt was an HBO horror anthology show that was really popular in the 90s. Tales from the Crypt. And the success of that show spawned 2 direct feature films and one that was not directly linked, but it's widely considered to be connected to the universe. The first of, and the best of which, in my opinion, is 1995's Demon Knight. Now, I used to love this show when I was growing up. I'd stay up late on Saturday nights to watch it with my dad, and I still have a lot of fond memories of a lot of the episodes, and this movie was sort of the culmination spot of the show's popularity. This movie tells about an ancient evil artifact that can trigger the apocalypse that is being guarded by an ex-soldier, but is also being pursued by a powerful demon who wants to use it for obvious reasons. And in the pursuits of this, our protagonist ends up holed up in this boarding house where the occupants have to stave off this horde of demons. This movie has a lot of really over-the-top fun, and the cast is an ensemble of a bunch of stars of the time, including one Billy Zane as our main bad guy, which is always a treat.
Look at me, you filth!
It's also got a lot of really good comedic moments in it as well. So again, if you want something not quite so heavy and a little more on the goofy side, this is a good one for you. Next up, we're going to go back to the 90s and visit a little movie called Mikey. Now, when most people think of scary movies where a child is the villain, most of the time we think of movies like Orphan, maybe The Omen, but I remember seeing this movie when I was younger and I never forgot it because up to that point I had never really seen a movie where a child actually engaged in killing an adult. Now that I'm a little older and I have kids of my own, just the idea of your child, the thing that you love unconditionally and is your one weakness, turning on you and killing you is truly terrifying. And that's essentially what this movie's about. It centers on this mentally ill kid named Mikey who starts killing off his family and then subsequently anyone else who gets in his way, using the veil of the innocence of a young child as his main weapon. The acting is a little 90s, I'm not going to lie, but if you've never seen this, I want to warn you, it jumps off fast and there's some really disturbing scenes in it as far as kids being hurt. It's a really hard watch as a parent, so maybe skip this one if this is not your bag.
This sort of thing ain't my bag, baby.
And at number 4 is the movie with the absolute best twist end on this list, and honestly one of the best in horror movie history, and that is Sleepaway Camp. This came out during the heyday of 80s slasher movies, and so to a degree it was overshadowed by a lot of them. And also, let's be honest, this is one of those movies that it's so bad it's good, but my god, is this movie a good time if you know what you're going into. It's basically a teen slasher at camp, like a much more notable movie you might have heard of, Bloody Murder, and it's cheesy and campy as all hell, but in the best ways possible. However, if those types of movies just annoy you, you might have a bit of a rough watch on your hands with this one. This movie has excellent and creative kills, way more so than it has any right to. The dialogue and the acting is awful, again, in all the best ways.
No problem, Gino. This guy blows dead dogs. Just lay it in there.
Eat shit and die, Ricky!
Eat shit and live, Bill.
Yeah, Bill, he's a little wet.
And you'll see what I'm saying fairly early in the movie when I say that this is a movie that could not be made nowadays. I remember seeing this at my friend's house when I was a kid, and the ending is one of the greatest what the fuck moments that has ever been put to film. Like I said, if you pick this one, temper your expectations, maybe blaze one beforehand if you partake, and then strap in for a wild ride. These next few, if you're a movie watcher who's very anti-subtitles, you're likely not going to enjoy them, but for those of you who don't mind, these next ones are some real hidden gems. And number 3 is a French film called Raw. And this is for sure the most stomach-churning movie on this list. If you do not have a strong constitution, then this movie is not for you. This movie is about a vegetarian girl who goes off to school to become a vet, and as a hazing ritual, one of the things she is forced to do is to eat raw meat. And due to this, she develops a certain taste for flesh that just progressively gets darker and darker, as I'm sure you see where this is going. This movie is one of those that just kind of makes you feel dirty and gross, kind of like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake, where just everything is rotten and dirty and infested. That's what they're going for with this, and they succeed on many levels. It's incredibly graphic, as you might assume. A lot of things that will have you wincing and cringing. I personally had to take several breaks and come back to it, but if you're there for it, it's a solid flick that will get under your skin in more ways than one. It's definitely not for everyone, though. Coming in at number 2 is the only zombie movie on this list, and that is a South Korean film called Train to Busan, or Train to Busan if you're my wife and kids. This is admittedly probably the least obscure movie on this list. It came out fairly recently, and it's a movie you have probably seen while passing things by on Netflix or Hulu, and since it's a subtitled movie, I'm sure a lot of people have passed on it, because I did as well for a bit, but seriously, don't sleep on this movie if you haven't seen it. This takes place obviously on a train, but it's during the chaos and destruction of the opening moments of a virus breaking out that turns people into rabid runner zombies. As far as traditional zombie movies are concerned, this has a lot of what you come to see, but the main storyline that is going on during this, of an estranged father and daughter, has some genuinely heart-tugging moments that really catch you by surprise. And even all the minor storylines that are going on in the background all grab your attention and make you root for these characters, which is the number one thing you want for protagonist characters in a horror movie. Give them personality, make me give a shit about them so that when you take them away, it actually hits me. This does that excellently, so if you like zombie movies, go check this one out. And I know I said I didn't rank these, so to speak, but if I had, it's very likely this would have been number 1 as well, and it's a Thai movie called The Medium. Now, I am notoriously hard to scare, so giving me a sense of real dread and uncomfortability and uneasiness is really about as best as can be hoped for, and this movie, more than any of them on the list, is the one that really accomplished that. This is basically the story of shaman inheritance in Thailand, which is a polytheistic culture where there are many gods and certain people who are essentially chosen to be designated shamans for these certain spirits until they pass away, at which point it's passed down to another person in line. And this movie tells the tale of this particular shaman and her coming to grips with the things that seem to be happening around her and to her family as her time draws near to pass the spirit down. Everyone in this movie is great, and I'm not going to give much more away other than the fact that this movie has some very unnerving sequences in it that will stay with you for a few days, which, if you haven't been able to tell so far, is sort of what I look for in a horror movie. So go into this prepared if you choose to watch it, because it's definitely got some disturbing stuff in it. Well, anyway, that's my list. Hopefully you found something good that will give you the scare you're looking for. And you know what really scares me? You not subscribing. Scares the shit out of me. You don't want to scare the shit out of me, so do all the things to all the buttons so that I can remain full of shit to talk about. Also be on the lookout for that musical biopic ranking that is still happening. Also, my first Real Talk is being written and the next Real Story has been chosen, so check out the socials to stay up to date with that. If this is your first exposure to the channel, there's my Real Story episodes, so you can check out those over there-ish if you're interested. What are some of your suggestions for a good obscure horror movie to check out this Halloween? Put them in the comments down there-ish. Thanks very much everyone for watching, and have a happy Halloween.